there is a date, and that date is the day I become worried if alt season isn't here. And I'm going to share that with you, but also the reasoning as to why that date is so significant. And I guess by the end of this video, you'll have a much better time frame in place for what may come next. And I've had the question come up a little bit in the private community about Kyron. Bitcoin is down from around about $111,000, now back down to $105,000. Is it going to go lower? And my answer to you is very simple. First of all, analyzing, whether Bitcoin is looking good or looking weak is simply looking at some moving averages here. This is the bull run ribbon I've created here. And I could talk all day about the relationships and the patterns that I've noticed over the course of the last 10 to 15 years. But to cut a long story short, in upswings like we've experienced here, moving from about $75,000 to where we are right now at about $105,000, Bitcoin likes to stay above the yellow line. Now, this yellow line is the 50-day EMA. If Bitcoin breaks beneath it, which it could, it will likely use the 100-day moving average, you can see here, as support. You can see also here, you can see also back down over here if I move my head, It likes to use it as support and always will. The only issue is, as history has taught us, 100% of the time, when Bitcoin falls beneath this yellow line and then uses this orange line as support, it is bound to likely fall back beneath and touch the 200 eventually. So all this in mind, right now it's not too much of a concern while the headlines are extremely bearish and why people are flocking out of their altcoins because that is the riskiest asset in the world to literally own. Bitcoin is holding up just fine. Now, we don't need much money at all to flow into altcoins to send them parabolic. To move a coin like Ondo up a 2x, you don't need $2 billion. You don't have to double its market cap. You need about less than 10% of that to actually do it. But that's not the idea of this video. Today, we're talking about the date that you and I have to be concerned with. Because if alt season hasn't come around at that point in time, we're likely in probably a bit more of a worrying situation than we are right now. Because like I said, the headlines right now are bad, but the charts, they're not giving up. They're telling me at least we're still green lit for possibly a bull run. It's like it's hanging on for the macro environment to turn bullish. Now, this chart's one of the few charts I want to show you here, first of all, that may indicate when we can see alt season. First of all, you can see it's kind of confusing. You've seen this on my recent videos. It's others versus Bitcoin's dominant. So when this chart goes up, that means altcoins are gaining market share from Bitcoin, which means altcoins are going up even more than Bitcoin. When this chart goes down, that means that Bitcoin is gaining market share over altcoins, which is again good for Bitcoin, but what that actually means usually is that it's bearish conditions because normally Bitcoin likes to take market share away from altcoins, not in bullish environments, but usually very bearish environments because people leave altcoins and go to Bitcoin whilst Bitcoin still falls. So we can see this happened over here, happened back here in 2015 to about 2016, This was a bear market. We saw an ABC Elliott wave pattern. It signals again, a time of bearishness, We can see here, this is what's called an impulse pattern, It's 5-wave pattern. We see 1 bullish, 2 bearish, 3 bullish, 4 bearish, 5 bullish. And then we saw the same 3-wave corrective pattern happen again, like over here. Also, as well as it did over here, falling into what's called a descending wedge. Now, this descending wedge is actually a bullish thing because you can see here, it kind of forms the bottom of this corrective pattern where, of course, this broke out. Now, again, when it breaks out, that's good for altcoins, So it broke out to the upside here. We had another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave impulse pattern. So a bullish sign indeed, like we saw back here in the 2017 bull run. So this happened again in the 2021 bull run. And just like clockwork, we've seen the same A, B, and C bearish pattern happen yet again. Just like the last 2 times this has happened in history of altcoins and Bitcoin, we are falling again into the same descending wedge. Now, why is this important when we're looking at the time scale of things? Well, because the end of this wedge will pretty much be late August, early September. So from where we are right now to the end of this wedge, we have 2 possible outcomes. The macro is so bearish, we fall beneath it, which in that case would invalidate what I'm about to say here and be very, very bearish not just for this chart, but for many other things, I think, at that point. Or we have what's happened the last 2 times this has occurred. And again, keep in mind, this is a bullish pattern where we squeeze and eventually we see altcoins break out to start that first wave yet again, like back over here and also back over here. This is what we could roughly look at expecting, okay? Breaking out again latest by late August, early September, and we have a similar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave pattern happen again. So to answer the question of like, what date is the latest day that I'm personally eyeing off for alt season to come around? Well, you know the answer, August, September of this year. Now, that's important, okay, as the latest date. But I want to tell you guys why this actually lines up very, very perfectly here with a second chart. Now, this is looking at the pool multiple. Now, the pool multiple, which is this blue line down here, is essentially miner revenue. Now, why I put so much importance on this is because miner revenue seems to follow a very similar cycle and pattern every single time without a hitch. And the blue line is actually calculated by taking how much money they're earning today and comparing that versus the last 365 days. To cut you a long story short, why I'm bullish on this chart right now in terms of it actually helping and playing out with the rough time frame of alt season is because you can see these red dots here. These red dots are a point the miner revenue actually kind of touches this black line every single cycle. But importantly, it touches this black line here at the exact midpoint, okay, between each cycle high. Okay, so I'm pointing at the cycle highs right now. Let's hope the cycle high comes around this time. But okay, so red dots happened here. What we actually have, if we look at the time frames from the red dot touch to the all-time high, is 427 days back here in the 2012 to 2014 cycle. From 2016 to 2017, it was 546 days. Back here in 2019 and 2021, it was 861 days. So the cycles are getting longer. As we know, this is what typically will happen. And now what we can expect, not guarantee, but I think expect, is from this latest touch we've had over here of this black line, at least 861 days, because that was the length of the previous red dot to all-time high, which means we're roughly looking at a time of about July 2026. Now, without looking at anything else on this chart, that's pretty important. And the reason simply is because we can compare that chart with another one of my charts I like to always bring up, which is this. Now, this is looking at when we actually have alt season. When Bitcoin breaks out of these ascending channels, so again, this is back in like the 2012 to 2014 cycle. When Bitcoin broke out of this upper trend line here, so out of this ascending channel you see in this period here, it caused alt season, right? So alt season back then lasted about 280 days. We fast forward to the 2015 to 2017 bull run when Bitcoin broke out of this upper trend line here. Again, this is the same ascending channel. Okay, what happens? Dominance fell. Okay, when its dominance falls, guess what happens? That means altcoins go up even more. So it's alt season. So alt season was 217 days. Funnily enough, a little bit shorter than back over here. Then we come and fast forward to the previous cycle back in 2021. Yet again, broke out of the bull run ascending channel right here. And guess what happened? Of course, just like things like to rhyme, we had Bitcoin dominance fall as well, which means we had alt season. So alt season in this case lasted a whopping 378 days. So we had 280 days alt season, we had 217 days alt season, and we had 378 days alt season. Now, personally, really quickly, side note, I think this alt season was so long simply because we got bumped out of this ascending channel a little too quickly because of the pandemic and because of a rapid QE interest rates fall. Fed went completely dovish. Stimulation checks were sent out. Okay, it was just mayhem and it happened too soon. But that's a different story. Looking and fast forwarding at today, okay, the same ascending channel's happening. This time it's a little bit longer, okay? The ascending channel's been going on for a little bit longer this time. However, one thing I think will happen is an alt season of around about 301 days or 300-ish days. I think definitely shorter than this, but a little bit longer than back in 2017, personally speaking. Now, again, going back to the pool multiple here, okay, what we can roughly speaking expect is the end date being about July 2026. And remember, from this chart as well, August to September is the latest possible date we could have price squeezing before possibly blowing out. So if we combine all of this information, okay, and we have a look at this, first of all, August to September is roughly going to put us about here, which means we can likely expect, if all things play out, at the latest, Bitcoin to roughly break out August, September of this year. When it breaks out, of course, that means Bitcoin's dominance will likely fall because that's the idea about Altseason, as it's happened every single time, okay? And when that happens, we can expect around 300 give or take days in order for Altseason to continue. Now, 300 days from August, September is June, July of 2026. Again, this lines up with the pool multiples date all the way over here. So again, that's the latest dates, but that kind of works in quite neatly and nicely. So it's just something to consider because I think, people need to be looking towards this chart right now, others versus Bitcoin. Because again, it's happened 100% of the time. One thing I've noticed is that people like to go against history and go against sort of like risk and reward. If something's happened 100% of the time, I'm always going to bet on that happening again. Of course, even if the macro looks not amazing. If something's happened 51% of the time, I'm still betting on this outcome because it's got a higher probability of playing out again rather than 49%. And so far, like I said, this has happened 100% of the time. Now, I've got a lot of questions recently about these charts I've shown you and the rough dates of maybe May, June, July of 2026. And would I personally hold my bags until those points in time? And my answer is simply absolutely not. I would actually look to be scaling out much, much sooner. And that would simply come by assessing this chart here. As we begin to go up and break out of this particular descending wedge, there's 5 waves that happen, remember. Okay, these 5 waves are the Elliott waves. We have 1 bullish, wave 2 is corrective, wave 3 is bullish, wave 4 is corrective, wave 5 is, again, bullish. Now, we've noticed in wave 3 here, so wave 3 back here in 2021 and wave 3 back here in 2017, the larger caps pump first. And you guys know I'm mainly talking about large caps here. That's because they're safe and can still yield high results. So what I'm looking to do here in wave 1 is likely, okay, wave 1 being the wave in which we actually break out of this channel, is likely use that time to liquidate some of my weaker coins, use wave 2 to reinvest the money I've either made or broke even on to buy some of the large caps. Wave 3 is to make sure I'm out of most of my coins. And hopefully the coins should be out regardless because of my realistic predictions. And then hopefully in wave 5, if I've missed any gains here, I'll use that to secure some of the gains, okay? Because I'm pretty much taking all my profits out here, even some of my smaller cap coins, okay? If I pull up Render from the previous cycle, you will notice this was actually a small coin back then, okay? And what Render did was actually have its all-time high in wave 5, not wave 3. And yet in wave 3, I would still this time around probably take my profit. Now, Render's a different coin this cycle. Render's a large cap, so it's likely to pump in wave 3. But again, I'm still taking my profit here. If I've missed some of my gains, I'll likely look to make them back in wave 5 because I'm not gambling my whole entire crypto portfolio that wave 5 happens. Anything could possibly happen. It's crypto, it's the world. I'm not gambling on that fact. So, like I said, the date, August, September of 2025. Keep your eyes on the charts. I'll keep you guys glued in. If we look bearish, I'll admit we're bearish. If we're not bearish like right now, I'm not going to admit it. Even though there's some horrible headlines happening, the charts tell a different story, in my opinion. All right, we've actually bottomed here. ETH and others versus Bitcoin, which is a very good sign to see. ETH versus Bitcoin, again, same sort of story, has bottomed as well. This is also very important as well. This is looking at long-term holders and their impact on inflation for Bitcoin. What that means is when this green line goes up, that actually means that long-term holders are adding to the inflation rate, meaning they're adding to supply, they're selling, basically. When this goes down, that means that they're removing Bitcoin from the inflation rate, or they're removing Bitcoin from supply. So this is actually now down at levels we haven't seen since 2023. So again, these guys are buying up a lot right now, and I'm pretty sure it's all got to do with the rapid adoption of Bitcoin. Look at this. This is extreme deviation pricing bands regarding MVRV. Okay, so MVRV, okay, is this line over here. This is market value to realized value. It gives us a line here that tells us basically how much money people are in profit when it comes to Bitcoin. Now, we normally have the all-time highs in the dark red zone here, at least a score of 3 and above. And you can see here, we haven't quite reached there yet, even though we do sometimes spike close enough to it. So while it's gotten close, it hasn't actually touched. And you can see these same pricing bands here actually show a pretty similar story. They're the MVRV bands as well. They are condensing quite a lot right now, which is usually a very bullish sign, because when these bands condense, that means there is likely going to be an explosive move. Kind of like when we see these bands here contract, there's usually an explosive move that does come soon after. You can see this happens time and time again, and I talk about this on the channel here. And we can also see the SSRO. I normally bring up my own chart, but I wanted to show you guys from a different and much cleaner perspective. You can see here, this is stablecoins versus Bitcoin. When this goes up, there is likely going to be a pullback because stablecoins have far less purchasing power to continue supplementing a move higher for Bitcoin, where we kind of therefore see a pullback. You can see here we've had a nice reset, which is fantastic because that usually means we have fuel in the tank to go much higher. Not to mention as well, sell side risk is towards the lower half, which is fantastic because as this begins to go up, that means more people are in profit and do take profit, and Bitcoin is overvalued. You can see this as a pretty good gauge here of actually timing the rough top of each and every single cycle, which we are nowhere near just yet. So like I said, we've got a lot of bullish things on the horizon. I think we have enough liquidity to continue supplementing moves higher once the macro eases up and the markets digest it. I'm not underplaying the severity of what's happening in the Middle East right now, by the way. I'm not a geopolitical expert though, so I've got no idea whether it's going to have a massive impact in the immediate or short term or not. All I'm doing is reading the crypto and Bitcoin charts, and they tell me a pretty convincing story. So guys, let me know what you think down below. All right, are these charts bullish to you? Have you found any bearish charts? And if you have, let me know which ones look bearish to you, because I want to analyze what they are. Okay, for today's emoji, I'm thinking the nerd emoji. Glasses, nerdy looking teeth, kind of like me, that one. Okay guys, take good care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.